Hello.
My name's Jake. I'm 23, finishing my final semester at a small liberal arts college on the East Coast. I'm not the straight A type, never was, but I've always been good at reading people. And I knew from the first week that Ms. Rowe wasn't like other teachers. She taught literature like it was blood and bone. No fluff, no filler. Everything mattered. The silence between words, the things left unsaid. I liked that about her. Most students were scared of her. I wasn't. It was a late Thursday afternoon when it started. The class had thinned out early. People packed up as soon as she said, "That's all for today." But I stayed, pretended to look over my notes, flipping pages I didn't need. I just didn't feel like leaving. Not yet. She looked up from her desk and narrowed her eyes at me. "You're always the last one out, Jake." I smiled, just making sure I didn't miss anything. Her lips curled slightly, not quite a smile, more like the hint of one. She stood up slowly, walked toward my desk, heels clicking softly on the linoleum. I watched her approach, trying not to make it obvious. "Let me see your draft," she said, holding out her hand. I passed her the notebook, and she flipped through it, scanning. Then, without warning, she leaned forward, one hand flat on the desk beside mine, the other pointing at a sentence I'd underlined twice. Her voice was low, close. "This part. Right here. What were you trying to say?" I couldn't think straight. Her perfume hit me first. Something faintly floral, warm, and unfamiliar. Then the way her blouse fell forward as she leaned in, the delicate chain around her neck swaying slightly. Her hair was up, but a few strands had fallen loose, brushing against her cheek. I swallowed. "It's supposed to be about desire, tension." She turned her head slightly, eyes meeting mine from less than a foot away. "Is that how you feel when you write it?" I didn't answer right away. The air felt tight between us, like we were both pretending to ignore what was obvious. Then, footsteps in the hallway. Loud, fast. A group of students passing by, laughing. Ms. Rowe straightened instantly, walked back to her desk like nothing had happened. But just before she sat down, she looked at me, and that smile was back, only a little sharper. "You always stay after class," she said again, softer this time. "Why is that, Jake?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The next time I really saw her, was the following Monday. Ms. Rowe had sent out an announcement over email, inviting anyone who wanted extra feedback to meet her after hours in her office. Optional, of course. No pressure. But I knew it wasn't for everyone. She didn't BCC the class. She sent it just to me. Her office was in the older wing of the building, the part with creaky floors and yellowed walls and ancient filing cabinets. I showed up a little after 7. The hallway was dark except for the light spilling under her door. I knocked. No answer. I opened it slowly. She was inside, sitting behind her desk, hair down this time, reading something on her laptop, glasses low on her nose. She didn't look up right away, just gestured with her fingers to come in. "You're late," she said, finally meeting my eyes. "Didn't realize this was graded," I replied. That got the faintest smile from her. The room was warmer than I expected. Cozy, dimly lit by a single floor lamp in the corner and the soft blue glow of her monitor. Books everywhere, stacked, opened, shelved sideways. The windows were closed, blinds drawn. She stood and gestured to the seat across from her. "Let's talk about your latest piece," she said, pulling out a printout of my short story. I sat down, tried to act casual, but my heart was racing. She walked around the desk and leaned over, placing the story between us. Bent at the waist, one hand on the back of my chair. The scent of her shampoo this time subtle and sweet. "This line," she said, tapping the page, "about the woman in the kitchen, the The way she pretends not to notice she's being watched. That's not fiction, is it? I looked up at her, surprised. It's a story. Her mouth twitched. Sure it is. She sat down across from me, folding her legs slowly, deliberately. Skirt just above the knee. Her blouse slightly undone at the collar now. She wasn't dressed like she usually was in class. She flipped through a few pages, eyes scanning, then said, "You write like someone who watches a lot but doesn't speak." I stayed quiet. "Maybe," she added, eyes locking on mine, "you like being watched too." The way she said it, calm, even made it feel dangerous. Then her phone lit up, face down on the desk, buzzing silently. I glanced at it. Dean Keller. She tapped the screen without looking and silenced the call. I opened my mouth to speak, but she cut me off. "You know," she said, slower this time, "this kind of writing has consequences. The way it reveals you. Is that bad?" I asked. Her gaze didn't move. "Not if you know what you're doing." There was a pause. She leaned forward again, just slightly, enough to make me feel it. Then, from outside the door, a distant thud. Footsteps. The janitor wheeling his mop cart. I flinched. Ms. Rowe didn't. She just smiled. A sharp, knowing smile, and said, "You're not afraid of being caught, are you?" 2 days passed. I couldn't focus in any of my classes, especially not hers. Ms. Rowe acted like nothing had happened. No texts, no emails, not even a glance. She stood at the front of the lecture hall, walking between rows, quoting passages from a streetcar named Desire like we weren't standing on the edge of something. Like she hadn't bent over my chair and said what she said. I told myself I imagined it, twisted the moment into something it wasn't. But then came Friday. She caught me after class, short, clipped, library, back stacks, 7:30. "Don't be late." That was it. No explanation, no smile. She said it loud enough for only me to hear and was gone before I could answer. I showed up 15 minutes early. The back of the library was always quiet, especially on weekends. Past the last row of bookshelves was an alcove most students didn't even know existed. Old reference books, discarded encyclopedias, dim overhead lighting that flickered occasionally. When I turned the corner, she was already there. Ms. Rowe stood by a low cart of donated books, her coat draped over a nearby chair. Her heels were off, barefoot. Her black dress hugged her back as she leaned slightly over the cart, scanning the spines. I froze. She didn't turn, just said, "You're early. You said not to be late." "That's not the same thing." Then, without facing me, she added, "Close the aisle behind you." I stepped forward slowly, my throat dry. She finally looked over her shoulder, eyes darker in the low light. "There's something about you, Jake," she said quietly. "You don't ask questions." I didn't answer. I was afraid to speak, afraid to ruin the moment. She bent again, reaching for a book on the bottom shelf. The dress shifted as she moved. I stood completely still, watching, barely breathing. She picked up an old poetry collection, blew dust off the cover, then straightened, not facing me, and flipped it open. "Do you know what happens to people who pretend too well?" she asked. "They forget when they stopped pretending." She turned around and held the book out. I took it without thinking. Inside, between the pages, was a folded piece of paper. I opened it. My own writing. A paragraph from my story, the one about the woman in the kitchen. She'd highlighted one line. She liked being seen, but only when she wasn't supposed to be. Our eyes met. Then came the sound. The front door of the library opening. A voice. "Hello? Is someone still here?" Ms. Rowe didn't move. She stepped in, closer, her voice almost a breath against my ear. "This doesn't leave this room." ever. She stepped back into the shadows between the shelves, gone in a heartbeat, just as the librarian's footsteps echoed around the corner. I stood there frozen, holding the open book, and the paper still trembled in my hand. I didn't sleep that night. The sound of her voice, the closeness, the certainty in it, echoed louder than any dream could. By morning, everything felt different, like a door had been opened and couldn't be closed. I kept looking at my phone, half expecting her to text. But nothing came. Monday passed. Then Tuesday. In class, Ms. Rowe was poised, unreadable. Like always, she called on me less, didn't linger when she passed by. But I knew it wasn't over. I knew it wasn't nothing. So when I forgot my notebook in her classroom Wednesday night, I didn't forget by accident. It was nearly 9 p.m. when I came back. The campus was mostly empty, cold air drifting through the quad. Her light was still on. I pushed open the door slowly. She was there, alone, packing papers into her leather bag. Hair loose, lips bare, no makeup. She looked younger somehow. "You're not here for your notebook," she said without turning around. I closed the door behind me. "Maybe I'm here for a different kind of feedback." That made her stop. She looked up at me, her expression unreadable. "I told you," she said softly. "This stays between us. It doesn't feel like nothing." "No," she said. "It doesn't." She sat back down slowly in her chair. "You think this is a game?" I stepped closer, but she held up her hand. Her voice dropped. "Let me be very clear with you, Jake," she said. "You don't get to ask questions like that. Not unless you're willing to live with the answers." She stood, walked around her desk until she was right in front of me. "You're not my student in a month," she whispered. "But tonight, you still are." I didn't move. Neither did she. Then she reached past me, closed the blinds with one slow pull, and turned the lock on the door. Click. The sound was louder than anything. "You're risking more than I am," I said. Her laugh was low and short. "You think I'm worried? Then what's stopping you?" I asked. She stepped forward, so close now I could see the rhythm of her breathing. "You crossed that line first, Jake," she said. Her hand lifted, not touching, just hovering. I just followed. Then, somewhere outside, the loud crack of a door slamming. A voice. A man's voice. "Ro? You still in here?" My heart dropped. She didn't panic, didn't blink. She just leaned in and whispered, "Don't say a word." There were only seconds to react. Ms. Rowe's eyes locked on mine, calm, cold, calculated. Then she moved fast. She stepped back, grabbed her bag, unbuttoned her blazer just enough to make it look natural, and in one fluid motion slid into her desk chair, flipping open a manila folder on the surface. I stood frozen. The door handle jiggled. "Ro? You in there?" Her voice turned sharp, professional. "Just finishing up, Keller." "What is it?" "Dean Keller." I recognized the voice from campus events. Loud, confident, older. He pushed open the door halfway and poked his head in. His eyes landed on me, then shifted to her. "Didn't know you had company." She didn't even glance at me. "Final draft reviews." Jake had questions about his paper. Keller looked at me for a beat too long. "Late hour for that." I forced a nod. "Needed clarification." He chuckled. "Dedication. I like that." Ms. Rowe smiled. A smile I'd never seen before. Controlled. Almost sanitized. "Well, don't let me interrupt," Keller said, backing out. "Lock up when you're done." And he was gone. The silence after the door clicked shut was deafening. Ms. Rowe didn't speak for several seconds. She just sat there, eyes on the folder. Then she stood up slowly and walked over to me. Her tone had changed. No edge now, just finality. You need to leave. I opened my mouth to say what I didn't even know, but she raised a hand. This ends here. What happened? What almost happened? It stops. Why? I asked. Because someone knocked? She shook her head. Because I know what happens if it doesn't. I stepped closer. You didn't look scared. She looked up at me, and this time I saw it. Beneath everything, the posture, the calm, there was fear, not of me, of herself. I can't afford for this to mean something, she said quietly. Not for you, and definitely not for me. I stared at her. So we just pretend? A pause. Then she walked to the door, unlocked it, opened it halfway. Before I could move, she leaned in close. Her hand rested on my chest, just for a moment. Her voice was soft, right against my ear. You never saw me here, and I was never over your desk. Then she was gone, walking down the hall, heels echoing in the silence. I stood there alone, the fluorescent lights buzzing faintly above me. The air still smelled like her, and I knew I'd never forget any of it.
Bye bye.